Hey everybody, welcome back to Buffy Virgin. We are watching season 4, episode 19? New Moon Rising. I'm your host as usual, Dennis St. John, horror cartoonist. You can buy my comics places. The New Famous Monsters. We have a special guest with us today, Maia Kobabe, non-binary cartoonist. Why don't you introduce yourself?
First, I want to say you nailed that name pronunciation. Good job. My name is Maia Kobabe. I am a freelance cartoonist. I met Dennis through comic stuff. I'm so excited to be on this podcast because I'm a big fan of Buffy, and I will promote my stuff at the end of it.
All right. Well, why don't you give us a little taste?
A little taste? Okay.
What are you working on?
I just wrapped up a book that is going to be a graphic memoir. It is titled Genderqueer. It's coming out from Lion Forge in May 2019. And it is a autobiography of gender identity, sexuality, and coming out, which is relevant to this episode.
Cool. Can't wait to read it. We also have with us, as usual, the rest of the normal gang. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves in any order you want? I didn't pick
total freedom.
From bravest to most afraid.
Yeah, so I'm Travis. I'm I guess the bravest today, but mostly I'm a cowardly lion most other days. But switch it up every once in a while.
Boy. All right. I'm John. I'm partially fueled with a very small amount of liquid courage tonight, and really looking forward to talking about this episode. This is a rich one.
It is, yeah.
And my name is Michael. I'm the Virgin. I've only seen Buffy up to season 4, episode 19. Also really excited to be here today.
So usually we start with reactions, but due to our odd recording and airing schedule, we don't have any this week. So let's jump to the summary.
The summary.
Season 4, episode 19, New Moon Rising. Willow and Tara blissfully walk together at campus, having reached that critical moment of a relationship when pet adoption becomes salient, with Tara trying to suss out if Willow is allergic to cats, which she isn't, by the way. However, no concern for whether or not Amy, that's Amy the rat, is going to be able to visit Tara's anytime soon is discussed. As Tara finally becomes a full Scooby, the gang is worried. There haven't been enough mysterious deaths and monstrous creatures as of late. That spells trouble, and in this town, that might actually be a literal spell. Suddenly, out of the blue, Oz shows up and makes everyone awkward. Well, except Xander, who gives them an awkward handshake. Tara bounces because, well, can you blame her? Eventually, Buffy and Riley go on patrol and tag team a demon, breaking its back over a tombstone. When Buffy brings up Oz's furry past, Riley acts like a typical brainwash initiative grunt, which makes Buffy furious. They still go to bed together, but like it's not a happy situation. Willow and Oz talk through the night, and we find out that, like most things in life, Tibet is the key to enlightenment. Herbs, charms, and some chanting, and you can control things. Hey, that's how I passed senior English. Despite the lack of funny business, when Tara drops by in the morning, she finds Oz and assumes the worst. Meanwhile, Buffy is also assuming the worst about Riley's character, and having to explain that some evil things are, like, not evil. Don't feel too bad for Buffy because Angel had to explain all this already to Detective Kate Lockley on his show. Now, the actual evil thing that can't be evil because he's got a chip in his head, Spike, well, he just got recruited to work for Adam, and in a sneaky way like a double agent, which the Scoobies don't even realize yet. Willow finally tells Buffy about Tara, and Buffy does freak out, but she loves Willow, so she does handle the news well after about a minute. Oz enrolls at UCSD with the hope of being with Willow again, when he smells her scent on Tara and goes into beast mode. What's that saying? You wouldn't like him when he's jealous? Something like that. The Initiative step in and save Tara, which is good, but then they capture Oz and torture him, which is bad, of course. Buffy and the Scoobies are reduced to asking Spike for help to break in and rescue not just Oz, but also Riley, who has had a crisis of conscience. Finally, just in time for the season to end, of course, but he leaves the Initiative forever, it seems. Buffy realizes that she needs to be honest with Riley, and they settle down for the talk. You know, the talk everyone has to have after they have been in love with a monster and are now dating a human. That kind of talk. We've all been there, right? For sure. As for Oz and Willow, they patch things up, but Willow chooses Tara in the end.
Fab.
Yay, well done, Travis. That was a good summary.
I've been loving all of your guys' summaries for this entire season. And some of the times when you haven't been able to hear it live and you're just like, yeah, that was good. And I'm at home like, that was amazing. Be more excited.
Yeah, that's why I felt the need to sometimes indicate like we don't actually know what the summary is yet.
There's
Sometimes
some
there's such a
really
weird
good
disconnect.
ones. You guys put in a lot of effort in those.
That's mostly Mike who does.
Oh,
I
John's
appreciate
amazing. John does
I appreciate your hard work.
thanks. Well, I do solicit people in our Slack channel for assistance, so I'm not. I can't take full credit if it's some of the one I did, but John never does, so his stuff is great.
Great art made by team. Good job.
All right, let's move on to great lines.
Great lines.
I just really liked this line, partially because like this is never described like I've never wanted to be in a group so much than the one described by this military guy who's like, the Slayer and her band of freaks, they're anarchists, Finn, too backwards for the real world. I was like, man, I want to join that group so bad. Judd?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the companion line where Riley says, "No, sir, I'm an anarchist," and he punches him out. It's amazing because to me, this like makes me imagine that like in the next episode, Riley's gonna have like a black denim vest and like a mangy dog. He's gonna be at like Food Not
Can of spray
Bombs.
paint.
He's gonna be starting a Xerox zine. I think Riley would make an
Yes.
amazing anarchist.
That would have been such a more interesting character choice. Oh.
That reminds me of, for some reason, when John and I, back in like the year 2005 or something, were at the video store we kind of worked at, and a guy came in and was like, I'm looking for like the people with like non-symmetrical haircuts. Like, you guys look like the type. Where do like these guys hang out? Do you remember that? It was like,
I don't remember that, but that seems very plausible for that time and place.
he's like, I just came into town and this seems like the kind of place.
So he wasn't even looking for a film at all. He was just looking for hipsters.
He was just looking for like the punk scene.
Okay.
And found us. It was like, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, we were probably a pretty big disappointment.
Go to the weird zine shop like a few blocks away.
Yeah, I think that's where we pointed him to.
Afterwards, you'd be like, he's someone else's problem now.
I just like the immediate description of like, you know, like non-angular or like, yeah, non-symmetrical haircuts.
This was before everyone had one, I guess. So that was actually still a tell.
Yeah, back in the early 2000s.
So my favorite quote is Willow's talking to Buffy about Oz, and she goes, "It's complicated because of Tara." And Buffy's like, "Because Tara has a crush on Oz?" Nope. Oh. And then Will's like, "There is something between us." And there's like a really like Buffy assumes moment.
Yeah.
Mhm. Assumptions of heteronormativity. All right, I had two. There's so many good lines in this episode, but two that I really liked were one when Oz is explaining like what he learned about in Tibet, and he has a line where he says, "All about keeping your inner cool," and Willow says, "Good, because you were such a spaz before." Followed not too long after that by when Oz is like, "Well, what should we do this morning?" And Willow says, "I'll have the less confusing waffles right now." And Oz says, "Breakfast it is." And I just felt like both of these lines are such Oz lines, and it makes us like they're trying to make us remember how much we miss him and how much we love him, and it works. And I just read a good article on how in Shakespeare, when characters have chemistry, it's usually shown by their lines like matching together better, or like they even will break into poetry like sonnets, whereas characters who have no chemistry will only be able to speak together in prose.
Huh.
And I thought this was sort of an example of like chemistry being shown through like dynamic dialogue.
That's a good notice.
Yeah. Oh, and then I have one down here that's more serious. The line to me that sort of summed up what's happening in this episode was Buffy's. No matter what, someone's going to get hurt. The important thing is you have to be honest or it's going to get a lot worse. And of course, this is another classic Buffy moment of her giving advice that she is not following herself.
True.
I really love the English lit line here. So Buffy's got their commander, whatever, hostage, and she says, "Stay back, or I'll do a William Burroughs on your leader here." And then everybody looks confused. And Xander says, "You'll bore him to death with free prose?" Then, Was I the only one awake in English that day? I'll kill him.
I love how Buffy is variously like, super aware of canonical literature or not aware at all, depending on what the plot needs at the moment. Also, that joke, when I saw that, I heard that this time. I was like, ooh, too soon. But it's like years ago, I guess. Yeah.
I'm surprised that hasn't been trucked around more frequently. That seems like such a good one. But it's rare that people have like, I don't know, I guess a crossbow seems more friendly way to put that, but because there's a William Tell vibe to it.
Right.
But I don't know.
And they were totally just last episode, Jonathan was William Telling or William Burroughsing the apples. All right, kill counts.
The kill count.
So only one confirmed human, but 2 were mauled, so potentially will become werewolves. I don't think that's ever discussed.
And Buffy makes an actual reference to her kill count in this episode.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
So she's been listening to this podcast.
Gets an actual mention, which is nice. There's 1 KO and 2 monsters are captured. Maybe 1 died, maybe it didn't. It was a little unclear. But that's the kill count. So let's move on to weird noticings and trivia.
Weird noticings.
So I think it's no one is taking Giles' snacks or drink offers. He's being a good host. They're being bad guests.
But it's pretzels, okay? Let's keep it real. Of course, there's some weak snacks there. Oh yeah, I said there were all these furry jackets this episode. Like Oz and Willow both had really.
Oz and Willow both have amazing jackets on. I agree. I was gonna put this in, and then I noticed you had already in the notes. They clearly wanted the like Willow and Oz again, trying to sort of like show their like chemistry and old history is like they're even a little matchy. And yeah, the jacket that Willow's wearing when they first stroll outside when she doesn't realize it's the full moon is just an incredible piece of clothing.
Riley's just incredibly excited to use his cell phone, and it's just like a weird glee he has about him that's beyond just like what he's actually doing, which is calling the initiative, whatever. He's so excited. And 2, as I saw his excitement, it like triggered to me that he looks like Leon in Resident Evil 4. So if you scroll down at the bottom of the document here, I just have like a little.
Let's look at the cat.
And I'll share my screen so everybody can see what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
it's just like a very clear comparison to me. Like, I don't know. And then it made me think of all of the missed casting opportunities. And, they've never made this Resident Evil movie. And also Constantine should be played by James Marsters. And anyway, that's casting misses for the Buffy crew.
So that's Resident Evil 4 is the one that's in like Eastern Europe.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
Spain. I think it's like Spain, but yes.
Oh.
I thought it was Spain. But yeah.
But like medieval village Spain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I thought Oz was kind of like sweet, and he's like, I just miss you guys. But no one was really all that welcoming when he showed up. Like there was really some serious cold shoulders going on when Oz showed up.
Yeah.
And
I think everybody took Willow's side in that breakup.
Everyone did, for sure. But
Well, I mean, he was the one who skipped town, so.
Yeah, but when you skip town, there's a death too. Like, there's just so much weirdness about that whole evacuation.
Yeah.
I'm pissed because Oz went through this whole Tibetan struggle, and like Angel had the Ring of Amara, and that probably could have done something for him, and it was never even considered to hand it off.
The Ring of Amara is so unused. There are several things that come up in Angel that you're like, this would have been so useful to have in Sunnydale. Oh, well, we're just going to throw it into the sea. Never mind.
I mean, because Oz isn't even on the episode in Angel when the ring is like in play.
I know.
Like, but I guess, they've got a plan for him to go to Tibet. But I was just, anyway, after seeing him figure out the problem, which I didn't even realize was figure outable. But
I was just going to notice before we leave this Scooby meeting scene that Willow and Anya's like dress or fashion or I don't know, clothes choices are, I think, the most similar right now of any point in the arc of the show. And it's interesting to me that their hair is so similar and they're both wearing kind of like a long sleeve shirt and a skirt, I believe, when they, I think, dislike each other the most also right now. Like they're actively not fans of each other, yet dressing very much the same.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I was wondering if it was just sort of like, oh, we don't really have a whole closet for this other character. Let's just pull some stuff out of Willow's closet for Anya to wear.
That's interesting. They've taken so many social cues from each other. Like they're totally taking all the same influences.
Mm-hmm.
But they still have to hang out. Like this
They
Scooby
do.
Gang situation forces their hand. It's clear Anya wouldn't be there, if
Yeah.
she wasn't obsessed with Xander. But
Yeah, I think they made it clear last episode that Anya is yet to become friends with anyone outside of Xander, right?
Yeah.
Like, she means
Except Spike.
Yeah,
can't
except
get
Spike,
rid of
yeah.
Spike.
I just want to point out, and there's a screenshot of this if you want to scroll down to the somewhere in the document. Yeah, it's the first picture. Riley owns a canteen, and it's hanging on his bedpost, which tells me that he actually uses it frequently. So, it's just weird because he's not, a Cub Scout going to the weekend jamboree. So I'm not sure why he has a round canteen.
put canteen next to your binoculars and stuff that just like gets used all the time. The binoculars are super creepy if you use them. Mostly creepy. Canteen is like might be responsible. Everybody carries around water bottles all the time, so it's like we've just transitioned. Like I have like 4 of these on this desk here. Spike's crypt is really sad. Like you get in there and they just cut and he's got a blanket on top of a stone crypt. It looks super uncomfortable. I like feel for Spike every time we see his crypt.
Aw.
Like when he had the sad TV that got like smashed, like I don't think they mean for us to be like empath to him, but every time they show his face, like you give a little bit of like, you feel a little love for him and his weird, sad circumstances and his off-campus housing.
Yeah, he's definitely not living the high life like when he was back in the factory before it burned down.
Yeah.
Like Angel had his act together as far as like how a vampire should live, and Spike can't even get to that level. Like,
Yeah, presumably no one is living in Angel's underground apartment now. And I mean, from Angel, we know that like vampires, we don't know if they get back problems, but they appreciate a mattress,
Yeah,
whether good or not. So you'd think that Spike would be like, I don't know, carry a mattress in there. I don't know.
You know what? It has to do with Drusilla, because when Spike was with her, they had an amazing place.
Yes.
And then as soon as she's gone, he's like, I'm a single man. I don't need any of this crap. I'm gonna
what's interesting is
in a crypt.
it's not like Drew was doing that for him. Like he was because Drew had like health issues, right? So he was the one taking care of her. So, but it's still like codependency, right? That he's like, he does everything for her and he can't do it for himself.
Wow, even with Harmony, he had a bed. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm with you. Spike's crypt is like a depression cave right now. I love, this is a little bit early in the episode, I loved that the Tara suggesting that they hide a cat in a dorm room. To me, that was just such classic college student logic. Like, no one will notice. They definitely don't, check our dorms during breaks or anything.
Yeah, this whole thing really bothers me because like they're really early in the relationship to be considering getting a cat together.
Yes.
Like, cats live a long time. Cats are a big responsibility. I remember when my girlfriend a long time ago asked if, told me that we should get a cat. It scared the absolute bejesus out of me. Also, like, if you go down, I've got the second screenshot. Tara's dorm room. Tara, look around the door. She has painted her walls black really badly. She's painting her walls in her single dorm room black, and she's gonna put a cat in there. She's destroying this dorm room.
Yeah,
she
if
does
they
not have an active RA for sure.
But also, they already have a rat. Like there's already like
Willow has a rat. That's a different room.
But they don't play with it or anything.
This cat that they're getting is a direct threat to another human being's life. Who's in the rat.
I mean, I think the cat goes along with, I think people made comments in previous episodes about like Tara moving too quickly and making sort of grand emotional gestures like gifts, for example, too soon. Like it's very clear that, or at least it seems to me that this is Tara's first kind of serious relationship. Yeah. And she's like, oh, like, she's going to be like getting matching jewelry. She's going to be the first one to recommend matching tattoos. Like, it's just all of these landmarks coming way too soon. And the cat is just one of them.
And also just like throughout this whole episode, because I really like Tara and I've always liked Tara, but like this particular watch through, I just keep noticing how weak she is and how quick she is to say, Willow, your feelings are what matter. I understand what you're going through, and just really does not talk about what she needs at all.
No.
And it kind of makes me like almost dislike her a little bit. It's like, be strong, for Christ's sake, like stand up for yourself in this relationship.
Yeah.
And Willow's already kind of like, she's put upon as a character a lot. So it's like two mice. I mean, they're just, at least the way they get depicted, in this episode. Well, we'll get into it more. I hope.
Yeah.
I think so.
I did like the phrase that Tara used referencing the cat, that she wanted her room to be Willow friendly. I just thought that was a cute phrase, and it made me remember I have a lot of friends with food allergies. And when we first would be like, okay, well, now I can't have this, now I can't have that. And when we were cooking together as friends, we'd be like, we want to make sure the food is like Ashley friendly. If we're making our friend Ashley, and we would use that term to be like, make sure there's nothing in there that's gonna make her sick. So I did like that line, just as it's a sign of, it's just all a sort of sign of Tara thinking of Willow's needs when Willow is not necessarily thinking of Tara's needs.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of that this episode, like later on when Willow is like really honest with Tara, but it's also like, do you want to be to your girlfriend be talking so much about how strongly you're feeling about your ex? Like, isn't there a degree of like where it's not honesty, it's like overwhelming. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like the scene with Buffy and Riley arguing about werewolves and the use of the word bigot for like somebody who discriminates against monsters. It's really like putting the nail on the head of like the monster metaphor for the show, So I got nothing but love for Buffy and nothing but anger for Riley for that scene.
I mean, you call someone a bigot, you're gonna get a reaction. They get it. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Do we want to talk about the Willow coming out to Buffy scene? I mean, there's a lot to talk about
there. Yeah.
We can save some of it for themes, but
so yeah, I definitely have a lot to say about this in themes. I like this scene. This felt true to me. I came out for the first time to my best friend also, kind of in a similar way. I was younger, I was like 13, but in a way of not using any words or labels, like not saying like I'm lesbian or I'm bi or I'm gay, but more like I like a girl ? And I do think that though Buffy, she has like this moment of having to recalibrate, I actually think she handles this really well. I would give Buffy, especially for the year 2000, I would give her like a solid like B+ as reaction to your friend coming out to you handling.
Good grade. That's totally better than her GPA. So
that's good to hear. I had no sense. I had no reference to like recite. I mean, we'll talk, I think, about this more in like, questions and themes, but I had no reference for that experience. No one's ever come out to me. So it always feels it felt off. Like I wanted her to be more responsive, but
I think the thing she does is like, she's never negative, but she has like 30 seconds or a minute of kind of freaking out a little while saying positive things. And then like her emotions catch up with her logic and she's like, no, I am fine with this. Yeah, of course I'm fine with this.
Yeah, right? And I felt like if we're then talking about the actors, like I felt like the line when Buffy sits down on the bed finally goes, no, we're fine, we're cool. Like that line felt so genuine to me. Like it didn't, like from an acting point of view of Michelle Gellar being like digging into like, no, like we're best friends. This is not going to change anything. And so I felt like that line when she like sort of meets Willow's eyes, and I think they maybe even like touches her hand or something, I can't quite remember, made up for her like previous like calling Willow Will 5 times in a row.
Yeah, I couldn't tell whether or not I really liked that as a writing choice to have her keep saying Willow's name. I couldn't tell if that was accurate or just like a weird thing they were doing for TV. But I was like, interesting choice by saying her name again and again to indicate she's processing something.
It felt like they were masculinizing her because they were using like a more male sounding name.
So I never thought of that.
Well, I mean, we've seen this relationship coming for so many episodes, and like only Buffy well, not only Buffy, the Scooby Gang seems generally out of touch with what's going on with that relationship. It felt like something was going on in her mind to me, the way that was written, that she was thinking of Willow as being kind of, in, I guess this is like very heteronormative, that it was in a male-female pairing of how she was thinking through it. And maybe that's, projecting how I'm thinking, but when calling her Will over and over again, like a separation happened in her mind.
That could be. I wouldn't be surprised if that might have been something that the writers were thinking about in that moment. I read it more as when you use a nickname that's like not the nickname you usually use, it can sound super awkward. Like, I don't know, if someone were to suddenly call you Michael, like Mikey or something, and then you'd be like, oh, exactly. You have that exactly kind of a like, I took it because I was like, is Willow ever called Will regularly in the show? I mean, that's not, maybe a few times, but it's not like, not like a normally used nickname, at least between Buffy and Willow. So to me, it just stuck out as that like awkwardness of like, this is not.
If anyone calls her Will, it's usually Xander.
I was going to say Xander.
And they're like the childhood friends. So
Right.
maybe that makes a lot more sense.
And I know Angelus calls Buffy Buff. And I noticed Jonathan called Buffy Buff a couple times when he was a superstar. But yeah, there's not too many nicknames on the show, really. I mean, Xander is a nickname. But...
Yeah. Well, Faith calling Buffy B, that's a notable exception.
Faith, where is Faith? Oh.
No one knows. It's a mystery.
Mike, you got the next one?
Hey, Dr. Travis, this is for you. Is it cool to carry an unconscious person in a body bag?
It is a terrible idea. It shows you just like how evil the initiative is. I have to wonder, like, did they make the initiative so evil this episode so that like Riley would finally like realize his mistake? But also it's like, how good of a character are you when it's like the very end of the most evil like part of like your group, and you're like, you know what, we're just too sinister now. I really been kind of sinister for 18 episodes. But boy, we really just reached my sinister maximum,
Who's the unconscious person in the bag?
Oz in werewolf.
As werewolf form. No support to the neck at all.
Yeah. It was,
in fairness, they don't think he's a person at that point.
I really like their just
we should read a book because
on campus where they do zip them up and are like
that doesn't fly anywhere on campus. No one's like, oh yeah, that's normal. A bunch of military dudes. No questions asked, my friend. But it's like, man, I don't know how proud to be if like you could fill your sinister tank halfway and be like, all right, I'm good. Or whatever. and then Willow is weirdly jealous of Oz's transformation, but she's really gone through a whole lot of transformation herself this season, I think. And it's more than just realizing that maybe she is gay or bisexual or whatever. She's been transforming as a witch. She doesn't give herself that credit, which I think is pretty common. But I don't know, she's a pretty different character this season than last season, it feels like.
Oh yeah, definitely a big change too, especially if you look at like from season 1. Will,
oh god,
yeah. How many elements has she mastered?
All 4.
So I watched this episode with Dennis, and we actually paused it, and I was like, how long has Oz actually been gone? And so I looked at all of the episodes this season, and I tried to work out like a timeline. So we know that the episode Fear Itself happened at Halloween. And then there are 2 more episodes. There's an episode, I think it's Beer Bad, and then there's the one where Oz leaves, which is Wild at Heart. So if Fear Itself is happening on October 31st, and we say that each of the following 2 episodes take like 3 days, the soonest Oz could have left is like November 7th. Right? And then he returns before the end of the school semester. A lot of people talk about how Sunnydale is actually Santa Barbara. So I looked up the UC Santa Barbara school semester. And this year in 2018, their fall quarter ends on December 15th. And I think that's pretty normal for San Diego UC system, the UC systems that they all end like in mid-December. So if Oz comes back before the end of the school year, but with enough time after this episode for the 3 remaining episodes of the season, which we could say take between maybe 5 and 7 days, the longest that Oz could possibly be gone is November 7th to December 10th, which is only like just over a month. So it was interesting to me. It gets so romantic when he's laying on the bed and he's talking about traveling the world, and he's been to Romania and he's been to Tibet and he's done all this meditating and he's learned so much. But I was like, when I looked at the days, I was like, wait a minute. He can't have been in Tibet for more than like 1 week. Considering how long it would take him to get out of the US and travel through apparently all of Europe and then get to the Himalayan mountains and then up to some Tibetan monastery. He's talking about it like he spent months there and really learned so much about himself. But you're like, he meditated for like maybe 7 days.
Isn't that typical of people who go on like a 1 week vacation and come back
they're
changed?
like, I'm a completely new person. But it's honestly, when you look at it in that light, it's more like a quick fix. It's almost more like he had this whole journey that felt like so deep. It's really, he tried to slap a Band-Aid on the werewolfism via 1 week meditation retreat and then came back being like, I'm a new man.
God, so I have a question for you about this, though. So was this always the plan for the show, for Oz to go and come back? Because there's been a lot of weird things about this season where like Walsh, is killed a little early in part. And then Oz apparently wanted to, get a new contract and like do, I assume Austin Powers or some other thing. The actor.
Didn't he go to, what show did he go to? Didn't you mention?
Someone knows the show he went to, but he left to do a different thing, right?
He did.
He wanted to do movies is what my understanding.
So are the writers like, you've put this together perfectly, which is like, it's about a month that he's gone. Was that the original intent then? He was possibly never intended to leave the show. But this episode was planned at a future date. And maybe this is the only time they could ever do this episode.
I don't know how any of those.
Did it rush the timeline on Tara Willow to have this, or was Tara Willow never intended to happen except because
I think writing wise, you needed Oz to come back to like fix how badly he left.
Yes.
And to make it a clear like decision to move on with Tara instead of to make this to have like a clear confrontation, make it like blatant, because the show wasn't doing that. I want to point out that I did different math.
Did you? What did your math come up, Dennis?
I just looked at the air dates of the episodes, and Wild at Heart's air date was November 9th. New Moon's Rising is May 2nd. So by that, it's been like 6 months. So I think we were looking at it being like, this is near the end of the next semester instead of.
So have we?
We never saw them go on Christmas break, but the show did Thanksgiving, and then it didn't do a Christmas episode this year.
Okay,
They're in the year
I can see that. All right, I accept that logic. I was just thinking that they never mentioned the end of the school year or like finals, like in this season, that they haven't reached that point yet. But I guess they could have completely skipped them signing up for the spring like quarter classes and all of that.
Well,
and they're presumably still taking like
still getting an A. They're still getting A from Maggie Walsh's class.
We're still up until a few weeks ago still taking Maggie Walsh's class. Like maybe it was a 101 that moved right on to a 201.
Oh boy. And still being taught by a TA, I guess. I don't know. I accept both of these timelines. I want your listeners to write in and say whether they think it all happens in the fall semester or whether it rolls over into spring. Has Oz been gone for 30 days or 3 months?
Either way, that's still super short. Like 6 months for to travel the world and learn like forbidden meditation techniques. That's pretty quick. And either way, it makes all the characters, it's a reminder that they're not terribly mature.
And I think the thing that it doesn't necessarily make sense that this episode, even though it aired May 2nd, it doesn't seem like it takes place in May because everybody's wearing like fall coats. They're not dressed in their summer attire yet, but anyway, either way, it's totally like the quick fix.
Of course, there's the third option, which is that time moves around the Hellmouth at different rates than it does in the rest of the world. And Oz could have been gone for 4 months while only 4 weeks pass in Sunnydale.
It's true. We don't know how the hell time works.
I love though any radical transformation, and you just say went to Tibet, and people are like, "Oh, okay."
They're like, "Oh, checks out. That checks out."
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the Tibet thing later.
Oh, good.
So it's a good thing for Tara that Oz is the slowest werewolf ever. There's no helping it. Humans can't really run on 4 legs. It doesn't really work.
Poor Tara, she's been victimized twice now, by the long arm monster in Superstar and now by the werewolf. I feel like she's always the victim on this show, just constantly being chased. But
she's the new Joyce or the new Willow.
She's the new Willow, which is crazy.
Yeah, she should have smoke bombed him.
Oh yeah, and the whole scent thing with Oz going crazy about the scent, but it's like, Willow had Willow would have Xander's scent or Buffy's scent on her in the past. It was like no big deal, and Oz had already seen Tara with Willow at Giles's house. So it's like, why is he going so berserk? unless this is like a disclosure, like that something is happening off screen.
I have a fan theory about that.
I mean,
Go ahead.
Okay.
So, Tara's lipstick color changes fairly noticeably 3 times over the course of this one day. So I was only able to watch this once, so forgive me if I'm getting it slightly incorrect. But when Willow opens the door of Tara's dorm room in the morning, Tara's wearing one color of lipstick, and then they have a little conversation. And then the next time you see Tara is when she sees Oz, and Oz says the scent thing, and she is now wearing a different color of lipstick. And this maybe could indicate that Willow and Tara actually made out in the dorm room so much that Tara's lipstick was messed up enough she needed to put on a new color.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, also at that point she's wearing Willow's sweater,
and she's wearing Willow's sweater, the hoodie.
She was wearing, that Willow was wearing when they entered. So I think there definitely had to be something going on because like clothes got changed.
Yes,
right?
Clothes got changed and makeup got changed. However, then Oz chases Tara, and then when Tara runs into Willow and lets her know that Oz has been kidnapped in the initiative, she is wearing a third lipstick color. And this one does not have an explanation involving a possible off-screen makeout session. My one thought was, if you wanted to like explain this in the world of the show, that maybe she was so upset after watching Oz get kidnapped that she had to go to the bathroom and like wash her face off, and then her makeup came off because she was sweating and nervous and maybe even crying or something, and then she put on the third shade of the morning.
I can relate to that because the Oz thing is super upsetting. The whole
This
whole episode, everything is so unstated. Everything is super unstated this whole episode, except when Oz is like, her smell is all over you, and just the Oz's like jealousy, and like his jealousy is like super sexual and super like gross, and that is in direct contradiction with who Oz sees himself as, or who Oz wants to be. As, like, in control and calm, and that line of dialogue about she's all over you is so gross, and it's so intense. It's kind of that blew my mind watching it this time.
Your fan theory, Maya, is really kind of blows my mind, because I'd always assumed that I had seen that the show would show the first kiss between Willow and Tara.
Oh no, definitely not, right?
Definitely not. I think there's a lot of off-screen kissing.
I think they've been making out for weeks, and the show just hasn't seen it shown.
They were just so obsessed with like the Buffy Angel romance, and it felt like they showed us the first parts of that. And you're right. I guess it kind of blows my mind, that there's all this off-screen stuff. I never really considered it because I always thought that the show would have shown the first parts of it, because just to me that was just kind of how the show worked.
Well, they're discreet, right? You see the discretion even in the last episode when the sex house, where Willow just touches Tara's leg for like not even like a second, and then like the sexual repression kicks in. And I'm sure there's some amount of sexual repression in their discretion as well, but like it's like on 11, and it's just like you almost, if you don't know that there's something going on, you wouldn't even catch that that's like a relationship that's happened.
The only reason I wasn't totally on board is that it seems as if it just seems a little unusual that Willow and Tara would be intimate privately, but then Willow be just still a little bit confused about the situation. not just publicly, but just it almost seemed like she was confused by how much they liked each other. But it seemed if they were being, that way in private, that she wouldn't be quite as confused. But maybe that's not the case for them. So
I don't know.
I
That
don't
scans.
I mean, I don't think Willow is confused about like, oh, we've been making out. I think that makes I think she's confused about the feeling she's having, not about like the mechanics of the relationship. Right. She's confused about like discovering a new part of herself. That kind of
Also, people do that in real life all the time, compartmentalize like that. Like I feel like that's totally real.
Yeah. And I think part of us not seeing the making out is like because of the network and because of the like homophobia of showrunners at the time and stuff, and the like conservative nature of like network programming, right?
I don't know if we want to talk about it here. I actually was really curious where this episode fell in the chronology of TV coming out scenes and TV same-sex.
I have that timeline in my notes here. We're going to talk about it.
Same.
Nice.
Yeah. I also looked it up, so we should maybe wait for themes though or something.
We'll put that on the shelf.
I believe you. I believe your theory. I'm on board. I'm totally on board. That blows my mind.
So Oz is very naked this episode. We definitely see a lot of Oz.
He looks so vulnerable when he's in that like cage and he's totally nude. I was like, have we seen this much nudity on Buffy before? I couldn't remember if
We've
this was
seen Naked Oz before, but this feels different.
When Angel came back from hell, he was pretty naked.
Yeah.
So this is just a totally effective technique the show is using to show that our characters are in trouble and that our hearts should just pull for them, is that they are naked and in trouble.
Yeah. Naked and in a cage and being zapped. You don't get much more vulnerable than that.
Sorry, gang. The next question I was a request for John to enhance the image.
Well, okay, so our final visual exhibit, the last one in the document.
There's just.
So I don't mean the final. I mean literally the one I put at the bottom of the document, not the last one for us to talk about. Sorry. Anyway,
looks like Adam's using what, a telephone?
So that, I believe you're correct. That is an RJ11 connector, which is what you plug your telephone in with. So there's two possibilities here. Either Adam's brain contains a dial-up modem, or Adam's brain is a DSL modem. I'd like to think it's DSL speed at least. That would have been,
What's crazy with this is they had like Ethernet cables back then. You'd think he would be more updated.
One would think.
They're not even using like the most advanced technology of the year 2000.
Government budget.
But I mean,
He's lucky he's not being run on vacuum tubes.
Adam's mobile, so he could run from house to house and jack in, right? Like you can't assume that everyone's going to have that router. So
I'm jacked in.
I was going to say, do you like the jacking in on the side of the head versus the in Gynamonic? It's like the base of the skull, right?
Yeah, the side of the head. Data has one there. He's got a connector there.
Really, they ripped up Star Trek?
This is that opening up your head and plugging a wire in right there.
It's a big rip.
That's Data. Yeah.
I think it'd be great if it went up his nose. Wouldn't that have been like a really great gag? Or like it was in his ear, like his actual ear. He's like, hold on a second.
I like in Alien Resurrection, it's like a mole on your arm.
Yeah.
Unplug.
That movie doesn't get enough respect.
It doesn't.
If it was up his nose. I'm just thinking about that.
There's room for some good like character sketch, or like some concept art on that. That has to have been done. That's kind of a wonderfully gross thing to do. Clearly Riley's life is completely fucked now. And it's because his boss is dead. When Walsh moved on, Riley lost his purpose and also his place.
Moved on.
Right. Well, when I'm trying to make it about
impaled on a demon skewer.
But it sucks because, in real life, when this happens, if you get a new boss, like you have to start from zero, you're probably screwed because the person that was your boss put you there or hired you or maneuvered you to the position you're in. And now that new people are there, they don't know you and they want their friends there and their people. And so like, it's just sad how effed his life is. And like his kind of realization of that, and that he now is like completely AWOL from the initiative. And like, I just felt for him because I'm like, oh, dude, you used to be such a big deal at the initiative, and now you're nothing.
Yeah.
And I just see the piece that's missing is, your mom boss. And I'm like, I'm so sad for Riley.
Yeah, but now he's gonna make food for Food Not Bombs, so he's gonna be fine.
All right. Enter anarchist.
I
Riley.
really thought this was interesting, Mike, that you gravitated towards Riley in this episode. Like a thing in your real life was connecting with this character. Not to get too much into it.
No, please, let's not. But anyway, yeah, it felt very real.
I just wanted to point out that when they break into the initiative, men are military and women are scientists. Because Buffy and Willow dress up like scientists, and Xander and Spike dress up like military guys. And it's like, that meme, they're like, the two genders. And it's like, different things. But a good one would be like, in the Muppet Christmas Carol, like all of Kermit and Miss Piggy's family, like all the boys are frogs and all the girls are pigs.
Yeah, I guess, the initiative being at a frat house, they have to have all dude soldiers. Do you think there's like a sorority across the street of soldiers or of initiative scientists, maybe?
All scientists. I kind of love that. That would be a lovely thing to explore. Just like a really dumb short film.
A great one-off episode for this season would have been like following the female scientists all around.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have theories that the initiative staffed entirely by people who are masquerading in different areas on campus. Like, because there was that one guy with like a hookah shell necklace who was like a scientist, way back on. I was like, that guy forgot to take off his frat clothes. So, okay, the final image in the document, the demon in the cage next to Oz is the mask, the Makita mask from Reptile Boy, but wearing a cloak. And you can scroll. The first image is from this episode, and that's as close as I could get. They never did a close-up of it, but that's the same mask as Makita, who's on the right then.
Clearly. Do you think he's got like a snake body under that cloak?
Well, if you remember, Makita was cut in half, so I think underneath it, it's just this body that's been cut in half, and that's why he's embarrassed and is wearing the cloak.
It looks like such low rent Star Wars. It's like extra from the cantina. Love it.
There's some really good in future Angel episodes reusing of masks with cloaks. Also, I'm going to point out
from Buffy.
Like a mask from Buffy is reused in the background scene of some Angel, but like it's good.
Waste not, want not.
Yeah, I mean, there's masks are lying around. You got to use them. Is it embarrassing to go back to high school when A, it wasn't your high school, and B, it's all blowed up? Just because Riley ends up like sleeping at the Sunnydale High School overnight.
Although he is continuing to rock his like Walmart camping gear.
Yeah, I was like, where did all this camping gear come from? Like, there's a thermos.
Obviously, the
You've been prepping?
Yeah. Obviously, the canteen earlier was to foreshadow him having to camp out IRL.
It's just the tip of the iceberg of all of his leftover Boy Scout camping gear.
Yeah. Him and Adam were in Boy Scouts together.
Final note here, which is about the very end when Willow is sitting with Oz in his van and they're kind of having that conversation where Oz kind of like, so I guess this is not gonna work. And he has a line where I think he says something like, it was stupid of me to assume that you would just wait for me. And Willow has to really make the choice. That's kind of like, it kind of comes down to like Oz versus Tara here. And what I feel like so often Willow serves as the emotional mirror of the audience. Like Willow is feeling what we as the viewers are feeling. And that totally continues to be true here, that we love Oz so much, and his leaving in the last in Wild at Heart was very rough, and this episode does a lot to sort of flesh that out and make us remember what we liked about him. But we're also really coming to love Tara too, and so I feel like this choice carries like a really nice amount of weight, because it's like it would be easy if it was Willow was choosing between her new girlfriend and like an abusive boyfriend or like a shitty boyfriend, but it's between Tara and Oz, who we love. So I really liked that this was like a nuanced emotional moment here.
Yeah. Thank you, Maya, for that reading.
Very true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it for Weird Noticings and Trivia. Let's move on to questions for the group.
Questions for the group.
I'm just going to continue right from that to the question of like, for breakups, do you prefer to leave town immediately to never be seen again, or to like stick around and really dissect what's going on and really get into it? I honestly think skipping town.
I'm a big fan of skipping town. I've done it.
Skipping town works for all parties involved.
Yeah, I'd rather just peace out, but there's a stereotype in the lesbian community especially that if you stay in the city, you will have to be friends with your ex, because the lesbian community even in a big city like Los Angeles is small enough that inevitably one of your friends or extended friend group people will end up dating your ex. So you have to at least be able to like be at a party with them and be cool. So it kind of depends on what community you're in. Yeah. And whether you are literally willing to leave the state.
Yeah. In Jane's World, Paige or Jane calls it the inverted triangle, because like because there's only so many lesbians and only so many that you get along with and stuff. So everybody ends up like knowing each other's exes and dating each other's exes.
Yep.
Mike?
So Riley wakes up every morning with push-ups. What's your morning routine?
Not that.
Not that.
I hit snooze once every day. That's
once is fine. Once is great.
Once is fine.
You can do once. That's a beautiful thing.
But I also, my cell phone is in the other room from my bed, so it forces me to get up to turn it off.
Yep.
John has the coolest morning routine, I think, of all.
I'm not doing everything I used to do, but at one point where it was really worked out to a science, I had the coffee maker by the bed. I would, the alarm would go off. I would turn on the coffee maker, snooze the alarm, and then the alarm would go off the second time. And I would have coffee in bed with my I had a home theater PC connected to a monitor that was connected to the foot of my bed, and I would watch YouTube videos in bed while I would have my coffee.
Oh.
That's pretty sick, dude.
It's like the Michael Scott wake up routine from The Office, where he's like, I like to wake up to the smell of bacon, but I don't have a butler. So he has the George Foreman grill by his bed. So he ends up burning his foot.
I was going to say, before cell phones, the way I would wake myself up on like a day that I didn't have to go to school or work, I would have a book next to my bed and I would pry my eyes open and attempt to just start reading before I was even fully awake.
Wow, that's crazy.
To just like immediately get back, because I love reading. I read 100 books a year. Reading's very important to me, and I'm usually reading 5 books at once. So I just try to like immediately make myself get right back into whatever story I'd set down last before I went to bed. But I will say, now that I have a cell phone, it's more likely that my morning routine is like 3 snoozes and 30 minutes on Instagram, which I don't love and would like to train myself out of.
So does anyone want to share any coming out stories?
I have so many. I literally wrote a book about it. I don't want to bore your listeners, but yeah, I did mention earlier the very first time I came out like Willow to Buffy was to my best friend. And it was just before we started freshman year of high school. And it was a kind of situation where I'd had a terrible year-long crush on a girl in our 8th grade class who was not going to come to the same high school as us. So it felt kind of safe because it was like, well, I had a crush on this girl, but I'll probably never see her again. So now I can tell you about it. And my best friend, I would say, responded slightly worse than Buffy. I would have given her a response. If Buffy gets a B+, my friend got like a C. Where she was kind of like, well, okay. I mean, I'm glad you told me. It's probably just a phase. Don't get a crush on me. But, I don't feel any way about it. And I'm like, I think you do. But I would then, I came out then a lot more times in high school. There was a gay straight alliance at my high school that started up actually my freshman year. So I joined that before I had actually come out to anyone else aside from my best friend, but I felt like that was kind of a little bit of a signal. And then I went on to come out to multiple people in high school, and most people were just like, that's cool. And this is probably because I grew up in the very liberal Bay Area, where there was a gay straight alliance in my high school in the year 2003. And there were other out students like in the upper grades. One story I will tell a little bit more in full is I did finally decide to come out to my mom when I was as a senior in high school. I think I was 17. It was just before my birthday. And we were sitting on the deck outside in the sun, and we were petting cats. And I think we'd been chatting or we'd been reading together. I can't quite remember. And I was very nervous, even though I have 2 out queer family members. So I knew it was like not going to be any big deal. But I was just sort of like nervously like, Mom, so I think maybe I'm bi. And she was just kind of like, I always thought you're one of those kids who could go either way. And I was just like, yep. So that, my mom, A+ response.
That's interesting because like even now, like hanging out with friends who have kids, like they are making those kind of guesses about their kids based on their early behavior. And it is interesting, like those thoughts exactly coming across some of the some parents' minds. And like being a part of that conversation really early, I'm like, really? You think from this amount of behavior, you have 7 years of information, you think? That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I was going to share my coming out stories, but they're different.
I had to come out a whole second time after grad school when I started to come out as gender non-binary. And that I would definitely say was much harder. It's less related to this episode or what Willow goes through here. But for me, it was like coming out about sexuality was pretty easy because I live in a super like liberal area, and everyone kind of understands crushes. Like even if they're like, oh, I've never had a crush on someone of the same gender presentation as me, they've had a crush probably. But not everyone has debated their own gender identity. So that I definitely found was a harder concept for people to understand and a harder concept to explain. But I want to hear the stories you reference in the doc, Michael.
Sure. So I don't know how to frame these because it's like in a way you feel, flattered that people, come out to you in a way because they want to be in a relationship with you. And that's really challenging because that's happened to me a number of times. So, it happened to me at least 4 times in college. I mean, it's like you're flattered, at the same time, but like there's something about my behavior that like signals something about me that I'm gay, but I'm living a pretty heteronormative lifestyle. I'm married, to a woman, but like there's something about my behavior that signaled a lot of like something particularly like gay or homosexual. And I got a lot of like coming out to me because like that was the thing that was apparently I was waiting for, was a moment where someone gave me some time to come out. And like it didn't happen because I just misread the situation. I thought we were good friends or whatever. But it's like I'm not trying to completely misread the situation over and over again at this point. It was just like a weird awkwardness that happened, and like I didn't particularly enjoy it. And I wonder if that's like the sad thing that like, happens in sexual culture where, you want the story to have a positive or a happy ending when someone comes out to you and says like, and like, I want to make out with you. I want to like be in a relationship with you. But like, I have all these sad stories because I feel like they all ended poorly and I wasn't into it. And I feel bad about it. Like some guilt because I clearly like led this person on with my behavior or like showed that I was like a good companion in some ways. But it was always very frustrating because it ended the relationship completely, for a friendship just like completely being shut down because it didn't get to turn sexual the way the person, intended, or like to become more serious. And it really bothered me. But it's like, I'm flattered but sad.
Michael, I would say, please don't blame yourself for that. And I actually have a totally different reading on that. I've had that experience too, where I am out, I am queer, and I've had people, both male and female, be interested in a relationship with me. And there's no reason why I wouldn't, like in that I'm bi, so like I would be interested in anyone, but I wasn't interested in that person, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I have also had this end relationships, and I don't think it necessarily has to do with sexuality so much as people misreading a gesture of friendship or relationship that's a friendship as one that has a potential to be romantic. And I find this so frustrating because friendship is really important to me, and I have many, many close friends. And in general, many people almost throughout my entire life have assumed I was dating at least one of my people I was only a platonic friend with. And because we were just so close, and we would do things like get each other presents or hold hands or talk on the phone every day, or the type of thing that you might do in a romantic relationship. But to me, that is just a friendship thing. And I hate it when people misread that as romantic. And it can be really painful. I've had friendships end for the exact same reason. And I don't think, Michael, it's necessarily about people thinking that you are gay, although maybe that was part of it, but really more like just misreading. It sounds like you're a good friend, and they misread that.
Well, I thank you. I really appreciate how you frame that. That makes it a lot easier. I don't think about this stuff all the time, but this episode brings it out for sure.
Yes.
And I think about the way that I behaved in high school, and for instance, with John and I are like these people that talk all night when we hang out. We talk until, we have to go to get coffee at an all night place so we can stay up until 3 and keep talking because we have so many amazing ideas. And so John and I have this really unique and intense relationship sometimes where we'll talk forever. And we have totally been called out together as gay. People just said that stuff oh, it's true, blah, 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 because we were just walking together and not holding hands, but being locking eyes really intensely and being too excited about every single idea. And I took all that same behavior with me through my entire life. And that's I like a certain amount of intensity. And I just know that that's really exciting. And same with Travis as well. I call it John because I don't think I've ever been outed in public except when I've been with John.
Well, because you and John did star in a movie together where you fell in love.
Okay. We also made a movie about a documentary about it. But I think that was also
story about the day you die and it'll revive you. You can find it on archive.org.
I edit this podcast.
Yes, I love that kind of there's a book, I can't remember the author, but it's called I Think I'm in Friend Love with You. And it's a wonderful little comic book. And it's about that. I think the kind of friendship I want to have with you is kind of intense and might be misread as romantic, but it's really more just I'm obsessed with your brain and you make my life a better life.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, males can't handle friend love, and this is only men have come out to me in that way. So it's only males can't handle it and just want to make it serious.
It is a tragedy for the world, and if there could be more, just more friendship in general, but more people who are identifying as male in passionate French, lifelong, platonic soulmate level friendships, I think everything would be better.
Welcome to the podcast. That's what this thing is.
Yeah. Travis, you got the next one?
Yeah. So we all saw Spike as betraying the Scoobies, or is it too soon to tell if he really betrayed the Scoobies? Or is he being an opportunist?
Do you mean too soon, as in he's not really a part of the Scoobies, so he can't really betray them? Or
no, or is
betrayal hasn't really happened?
So Adam shows up, almost kind of kills Spike, but then Spike's okay, yeah, let's do this. But does he really mean let's do this? Because Adam shows up at my doorstop, I might agree to do something. All the while thinking, man, I got to get out of here. So do we think Spike is really going to betray the Scoobies?
Here's how I would defeat Adam. I would press the eject button on his disc chest. All his brains would shoot right out of his head.
A big magnet? One of those really big magnets, and just put it over his circuits.
Oh, God. The only answer I have to this is that, Adam is the least interesting part of this episode again. I just don't care.
And Adam's there.
I think Spike is going to betray Adam. I think there's no way out of it. Adam, has a lot of is intimidating.
Scoobies. He's going to betray Adam.
Well, he's going to betray Adam and the Scoobies. He's going to, he's pro Spike, but that's what I think will happen.
Yeah,
and
I don't.
It may inadvertently help the Scoobies, but it's more it's pro Spike.
Yeah, I don't at this point see that Spike could betray the Scoobies because he's not a part of them. When a villain,
He's just a bad guest.
Yeah, he's like the Scorpion. He's like the Scorpion and the Frog.
I don't know how they wrote this character. He's so bizarre. The fact that he just pops in, he's invites himself in and then tells them he can get them into the initiative, and we're all accepting this weird character is real. And then last week he's robbing people without any consequence. But I think he's going to betray the Scoobies and Adam. So that is a prediction.
All right. Maya, you got the next one?
I do. I have a last question here, which is a little bit more for the people who watched Buffy when it aired. And I was wondering if this was the first coming out scene people saw on TV. This is more for the people who viewed it live. So this episode came out on May 2nd, 2000. And then I also, this could be a segue. It looks like I think John and I both researched TV coming out scene, so maybe this is a place to go into that a little.
Yeah, we can go into that.
Is the research present on the doc? Or?
No.
Sorry, no.
Okay. Oh yeah, I don't think it's the first coming out scene I saw on TV. Although it's dumb because I think the only one I can really think of is from Star Trek DS9, which was Jadzia.
That's 5 years before this.
Yeah, like not coming out as gay, but like being like open to relationships of any gender because she's an alien who switches gender.
Right.
Love it.
With their bodies. So like,
I mean, the Ellen coming out was like kind of one of the big landmark thing. That's 97, I believe.
Yeah, I remember the
Prior to
Ellen
this.
episode.
Do you want to go through the list that you found, John?
Yeah, the list I have. So I was specifically interested in kisses because that's something that's really missing from this episode, I feel like. And because like I think it's interesting to me that this episode doesn't have the kiss, at least, not yet. And I wanted to see like, well, how conservative were they being by not having the kiss? And so like in terms of same-sex kisses on TV, LA Law did the first one in 91. Picket Fences did it in 93. Roseanne did it in 94. The Real World
the Roseanne one.
Also in 94. Deep Space Nine did it in 95. There's some show called Relativity, which I had not heard of, did it in 97. And then Dawson's Creek did it the same year as this. So I feel like there's not a ton of excuses in terms of like what people could handle or what the network could handle of them not being able to do it this year because they've been done several times. And Dawson's Creek on the same network, like on I think as a time slot before or after, did it the same year.
I will say, so I found all those same dates and such. I will say that I also found in 93, CBS's Picket Fences had a scene where two teen girls kiss, and the network demanded the scene be reshot in the dark, so you don't actually see the kiss. And then that 94 episode of Roseanne, ABC threatened not to air it, and it was actually dicey, and there were advertisers threatening to pull and stuff, but they did air it and it was seen by 30 million people. So I don't know. I felt like, and the Dawson's Creek one that you mentioned, that's called on the list that I found the first romantic kiss between two gay male characters because it's actually their boyfriends and it's passionate and there maybe even is like a little bit of tongue. There had been an earlier one in this on Will and Grace, but it was two gay, but they were friends and it was more like a political move. Like it was actually the episode was about a network refusing to air a gay kiss and then they kiss each other, more like to be like, this is what a gay kiss looks like. Mwah. But it was kind of more like a quick peck between friends to prove a point than being like, I'm really passionate about you and this is like a heated moment.
So are these gay kisses? Sorry, question. Are these gay kisses all women kissing?
So the first one in 91 on LA Law was two women.
Yep.
On Will and Grace it was two men, and on Dawson's Creek it was two men. And on Roseanne it was two women. So it's a mix. And then there were other episodes that notably didn't have kisses. Like Friends had an episode in 96 called The One with the Lesbian Wedding, where two secondary characters who are lesbians get married, but there's no kiss shown in the wedding ceremony, for example. So I felt like that though this episode wasn't like groundbreaking, the very first, it was right in there with a whole batch of firsts. And a list that I found called it the first slowly developing gradual
Right.
lesbian relationship between two lead characters who went on to be on the show for many seasons. For example, the 91 lesbian kiss, one of the characters who had kissed was quickly written out of the show, and the other one ended up with a man. So they didn't follow up on the storyline.
So this is the thing that I ran across, is that, yeah, exactly that like there was actually there's a whole rash of these in the 90s of shows that would do typically one lesbian kiss, and then all those characters were either like they were one shots or they'd be written off the show immediately afterwards. And it was kind of a thing that was done almost salaciously for
It was
a
like
buzz.
a hype promotion thing. I
Yeah,
remember.
and this episode, what's really interesting about the way that Buffy's handling it is it's kind of the opposite, where they're able to show the relationship, but not the physical side of it. And it's also interesting to me that like this whole episode, their whole relationship like lives inside like ellipses. Like when they talk about it, Buffy's whole like, oh, you mean, oh, and like in that whole scene, neither of them say it. And even at the end, the closing shot of this thing where Tara says, you mean, and then Willow says, I mean, and they can't say it. Like the word, not only do they not say lesbian or bisexual, they don't say girlfriend. They don't
say love.
They don't say, none of that is there. And it's interesting to me that like the lines that they feel like they can and can't cross. And it feels to me very calculated, like very intentional of like what they felt like they could and couldn't do.
Does that feel true to the characters to you, besides being just like a
technical? It does. I think probably like the thing with that coming out scene that feels real, and it's not something I've lived through in my life, but to me feels real, is that like it's probably true that like Willow wouldn't feel like she could say it yet, or that Buffy doesn't feel like she can say it yet. I think that's partly does feel real. But it's also really weird that nobody can say it. Even like Oz, when he has his like werewolf moment, he's like, are you involved? Which is like the most clinical, technical way to refer to it. Like what he really means is, are you fucking? Like that's what he means.
I would have guessed he would have said hooking up.
Yeah.
In college. Yeah. That term that I know gets a lot of, is too ambiguous for a prediction on this show.
Oh my God, you really do listen to us.
Oh yeah, the council of hooking up. Yeah.
It's really interesting to me because like I feel like kind of like you're saying, the show's not exactly ahead of the curve. It's kind of just like on the curve.
On the curve. That's a good way to put it.
Which is interesting, but also like in this way that's almost this inversion of the way other shows are doing it, where like they have the relationship, but it literally, like even when they blow out the candle, like it lives in this place that's just off screen.
Yeah.
It's interesting it's in the dark too, because that's something that happened earlier. Like that's an established way of handling it, is to turn out the lights or like fade to black.
Yeah, good research, John. High five through.
It's such a well-studied thing too, like the history of queer representation on TV. Like it's super studied, and like there's a lot of like quant studies on it too, of like GLAAD has been keeping stats on this since 2005 of like exactly how many queer characters are there, what exactly are they, how do we see them, are they regulars, all that stuff is like really, really well it's in databases and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, I could throw out a link if a listener wants to look up even more. There's timeline:gays in popculture, which is on www.infoplease.com/entertainment/timeline-gays-pop 1934 to 2010. So that's a link if you want to run through all of this. If you didn't quite catch every year and every show name, you can dive into that more there at home at your leisure.
Or the documentary Celluloid Closet, which is a little dated now. It's from like 2002 or something, but good documentary.
Yeah.
I was looking for lesbian witch movies for Rex, and I found a good list. The title, it's from Autostraddle, and the title of the list is 55 Fictional Witches Ranked by Lesbianism. And I almost shared it, but it has some major Buffy spoilers, like right at number 2 and 1. But I just was like, that's a good title for a list, and it's a full 55.
Glad to hear Buffy's so highly rated.
All right, that's been questions. Why don't we move on to recommendations?
Recommendations.
So for movies for this week, I've been holding on to this one for a while. It's a really good werewolf movie called Dog Soldiers. I've been holding on to it because it's military versus werewolves, which this episode finally gets. And it's from 2002, I think, and it's directed by Neil Marshall, who did The Descent, and he's doing the new Hellboy movie. And it's a British movie. So British werewolf versus British Army versus werewolves. It's really good and entertaining. But definitely came out in 2002 and has like weird Matrix jokes in it that are super dated. Like there's a character named Spoon just so that he can be killed by a werewolf, and then then they can be like, "Where's Spoon? There is no Spoon."
Oh my god.
Wow.
This is
What year is this?
2002.
At least it's
Amazing.
recent.
So it's before The Descent. It's the movie he made right before The Descent. And since then, he's mostly been directing like prestige TV. He's been doing like Westworld and Game of Thrones and stuff. I'm also going to recommend the 1989 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is one of my favorite movies. I've never recommended it on this show before. The reason I'm recommending it is super weird, but when Riley is like holding Oz, and Oz is so tiny in Riley's giant body, it always reminds me of the scene where Casey Jones is like carrying Splinter, and Splinter is this tiny little puppet, and he's like holding him on his shoulder, and he's like, "Family, this is about family." So like Oz is just so tiny, he looks like a little puppet man compared to Big Riley. And the only lesbian witch movie I'm going to recommend this episode, there's more obviously, but they can be saved for later. But I'm going to recommend Baba Yaga, which is, I think, an Italian movie. It's based on the Guido Kripek's comics Valentina, which I have the huge collection of for Fantagraphics. Awesome comic. The movie is really good also. Valentina is the main character, and she gets seduced by the lesbian witch Baba Yaga. And like a lot of queer representation from any period except for today, it's not super friendly. Like the lesbian is evil. It was actually really hard to find. I couldn't really find one where that wasn't like more modern, where like the gay representation isn't like also coded as like super
problematic.
Evil. Yeah. I like your little problematic dance. So those are my recommendations. Maya, why don't you do so?
Yeah, I have one as well. So I wanted to recommend the Miles Vorkosigan series in general. It's a sci-fi series. There are, at least 15 books. It's a space opera, but I especially wanted to recommend a short story called Labyrinth, and it's in a collection. I'm going to hold it up to the little camera here, called Borders of Infinity, it's the whole series is written by Lois McMaster Bajoled. This book in particular came out in 1989. It contains 3 novellas that are about the lead character, Miles Vorkosigan, who's the leader of a space mercenary crew. And there's the middle story called Labyrinth. He is tasked to go into a research laboratory and acquire a genetic sample out of a beast that's being held literally in a cage in the basement. And he sneaks in, and he's thinking he's going to acquire the genetic sample and then kill the beast. But he gets there and realizes the beast is much more human than he thought. And it's definitely one of those cases of a wolf-like creature being like, is this a beast or is this a human that needs to be
Do they fall in love?
That would be spoilers, but I do think you'd enjoy this story, Dennis.
Spoiler-free podcast.
And so the whole series is really good. It's won tons of Hugos. I love these books, so read them.
And I'm going to go ahead and recommend your comic. Sorry, I'm just going to pull it up right now, but it's thematically appropriate. A Heritage of Woods.
Oh, yeah. I wrote that. Ha-ha! I drew that. I didn't write it.
Which I'll show a little bit to the camera now. I don't know if you want to talk about it a little. It's good.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Birthday gift I got.
This is so the story I spoke to soon. The story is written by S.M. Biko, who's a Canadian author, and it was for a comic anthology called The Gothic Tales of Haunted Love, which was all horror love stories, with a particular focus on characters of like diverse backgrounds. So the story that I drew for it is about a woman who's a descendant of Ukrainian immigrants in Canada, whose grandmother, there's this sort of family legend that she disappeared into the forest with a leshy, which is a Ukrainian forest spirit, and then she is visited and tempted by the same spirits. And she, to spoil this story, it's only 10 pages long, she abandons her husband for the forest monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always go monster when you can. All right. That's Rex. Why don't we do predictions?
Virgin predictions.
So at the moment, Michael, you have 109 confirmed predictions, 64 denied predictions, thus giving you 63 and change % accuracy. Let's see how you did this episode. So in episode 6 of this season, Michael, you predicted Oz will return. I'd say that's confirmed.
Thank you.
In that same episode, you predicted that there would be no more non-Oz werewolves on Buffy. That, I'm afraid, is soundly denied.
I accept that those were werewolves in this episode.
And then the one that we have here that's, I think we can maybe settle this episode. It's a bit interesting. Mike, you said Willow will be surprised. This is season 4, episode 16, a few episodes ago. You said Willow will be surprised to discover that she is in a romantic relationship with Tara. So I think specifically what you were noticing is that Willow was slipping into a romantic relationship without really being fully aware of it. And so what do you guys think? I think this one is very debatable. Do you think Willow is surprised to find herself in this relationship at this point?
I think it's denied because Mike was like specifically thinking about the idea that she doesn't know that she's in a relationship. And I think Willow does know. I think others are surprised. Buffy is surprised, but I don't think Willow is.
Okay, that seems like a reasonable argument. Travis, you want to weigh in?
I think Dennis is right. I think the way Michael had given the original prediction was kind of like Tara was gonna say something and it would be like, we're in a relationship, and Willow would be like, what? That's what it felt like his original prediction was.
Okay, Maya, do you have a thought on this?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the crowd on this one, but I do want to say that I think maybe Willow was surprised by the depth of her feeling perhaps in this episode, but not surprised by the relationship itself.
Sounds like that is denied. So at this point, Michael, this puts you...
doesn't he have a long-standing prediction that he said the initiative will not capture a werewolf?
Oh.
Wasn't there? Yeah, there was something about werewolf or something.
1 second.
I know there's the werewolf lawyer one, but I thought he said...
Oh, Dennis, you are absolutely correct. I missed that one. Thank you. Season 4, episode 7, Michael, you predicted that the initiative will not capture a werewolf. That's true.
That's a bizarrely
that is also denied.
That was foolish. I we know werewolves.
We're like, what's going to happen when they capture Oz? I mean, all of us were thinking this at the time.
Michael, I'm afraid you dropped from a 63% to a 62.146892666.
Well, I will foolishly make more predictions about what will happen next on this show. So, prediction 1, Tara and Willow are going to get a cat together. Tara and Willow will get it. Adam is going to remove Spike's chip. No, it hasn't officially happened, or it hasn't happened off screen. It's been threatened to happen.
Yeah,
but it's clear that's the bargain that's going on. I think it will happen. Spike is going to betray Adam because fuck that guy. He was sleeping. Amy's going to have to reveal herself to avoid the cat.
Hold on. Do you think Amy's just chilling as the rat and that she can get out anytime she wants?
Okay. Maybe I need to rephrase this because I think that the spell will have to be undone because of the cat. Let me make it back clearer because that makes it sound like Amy has power over the spell. So let me change the wording on that one. I'm sorry. Amy will need to be transformed back into a human because of the cat.
Excellent.
And then Spike is going to betray the Scoobies. So Spike will betray Adam. Spike will betray the Scoobies.
I feel like that prediction is kind of vague and could apply like at any time. Do we want to be
in the next year?
Do you mean so in a timeline? But Spike is going to betray the Scoobies before the end of season 4.
Oh.
okay? Cool.
You know we don't have much of season 4 left.
I do. I'm aware. It's only taken us 7 months to get this far.
Yeah, when you said that, I was like shocked. I mean, although we did just take like a month off, but
Do I need to say Spike's going to betray Adam before the end of season 4? Because Adam ain't making it to season 5. I think that's pretty clear.
you want to make a prediction about that, or do you already have one about that?
I'm certainly have predicted Adam's demise.
John, is that in the doc somewhere?
Let me see.
If I don't, please let's add one.
We have predicted that Adam will get hacked. Specifically that Faith will kill Adam. And that Faith, at one point, this has been denied already, but Mike predicted that Faith in Buffy's body would kill Adam.
That would have been so cool. All right.
Yeah, that's all of our Adam predictions.
All right.
You can
Adam
make
is
a
going to
straight
die in season 4.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
Toy.
Should be making more general predictions.
All right. Now let's loop around back to themes. So yeah, so there's like we had a whole list of big themes this episode, and a lot we've already kind of addressed. We had the coming out to friends.
Yeah.
So I'll just list them now, and then we could go back into them. Losing your job / purpose, trying to reconnect with old friends / lovers, Tibetan mysticism as a trope.
I seconded the coming out theme because I felt like I saw Willow come out to Buffy, Buffy outing Oz as a werewolf to Riley, Willow coming out to Oz / Oz kind of outing Tara and Willow, and then Buffy also having to come out to Riley as someone who's previously dated vampires.
Yeah, totally. And then you have the
and then I also felt like werewolfism is very often a metaphor for something else in stories, and it felt like sometimes, like in Harry Potter, there's an established fan theory that it's a metaphor for being HIV positive, and also in this episode I felt like it could have been that, or it could have also been read as an unspecified just like mental illness. And I felt like the HIV positive metaphor stood up in the bigot scene when Buffy, mentions that Oz is a werewolf, and Riley goes, I didn't think Willow was like into dangerous guys. And that is something that is said about to unsupportive people, to people dating other people who are HIV positive, that's dangerous, that you're risking yourself there, or that maybe you would not date someone who's HIV positive because of the stigma that still exists. So I felt like that could stand as a metaphor there. But then also, just the way that Oz tries to just, meditate the werewolfism away and then feels like he's all better when maybe what he needs is to meditate every day, that this isn't something that's just going to disappear. It's something that he needs to actively maintain his mental health throughout his whole life by, say, like a regular medication routine, regular therapy, etc.
Yeah, I think that totally. We talked about that when we watched the episode about him trying to treat it like it's a cure.
Yes,
it's really a condition that is a consistent condition that he has like under control, but could have flare-ups again. I mean, it really reminds me of mental illness because of my personal experience. But like, yeah, and that also leads to my like kind of anti-Buddhism, for lack of a better term. I get really frustrated with Tibetan mysticism as a trope. It's a big trope in like superhero stories and stuff. But like, because I went to high school in Bloomington, Indiana, which has a really large Buddhist community. Like the Dalai Lama's brothers lives there, so there's like a Tibetan monastery, or there's a Buddhist monastery there. And I just came to see, I mean, this is making me sound maybe like a bigot, but like, I see Buddhism as the same as any other religion, with its goods and its bads. But when my brother had mental illness issues and went to the Buddhists, they did not help him. They took advantage of him the way a lot of anyone from other churches would, taking financial advantage and kind of kicking a person out when they're like more trouble than they're worth. So I don't see any like true holyism, like holy. Sorry, I don't know. I have a great way. It's too personal for me to like say this in a more PC way. I guess I haven't. But I don't see like.
Well, let me echo what you're talking
Yeah.
about a little bit here, Dennis. This is my personal experience with that situation. I used to work in Bloomington at a Tibetan restaurant that was owned and operated by the Dalai Lama's nephew. And they would bring in monks from monasteries who were in exile in India. And the way they treated those guys was awful. And they were like really exploited for their labor, was how it looked to me, and I can't pretend to understand everything about the situation. But it just was really clear to me that just because you're the Dalai Lama's nephew doesn't mean you're not a sleazy businessman. Like every other restaurant I've ever worked at in my life, it was very much like taking advantage of labor to the fullest extent they could. It was a rough situation because those guys didn't speak English. They were really under control of the monastery, and they were being used, in a for-profit restaurant. It was icky.
Yeah, and I just think the culture we live in like really looks up to Buddhism like it's not a religion, like it's beyond, like it's above.
It's more
other
pure.
religion. Yeah,
Right.
And that just hasn't been my experience.
And it's also, it's a real thing, so it's complicated.
Yeah.
There's that trope about white guy Buddhism and just like commodified, religion where it's like you buy the beads, you buy the chakra, you buy the, your Ganesh statue, and like you get it. You're part of that, community. And like that's the Buddhism that I see that is on display here is like, there's a commoditized form of it that Oz has, consumed, and now he has it, whatever that is, that spiritualism, that mysticism.
He traded a Radiohead record for it.
I would say that mysticism as a trope, Dennis mentioned, I think it's really common in comics. I mean, the recent Doctor Strange movie, Doctor Strange going to Tibet, a privileged white guy who's whiny as hell and bangs on the door until they give him all the magical secrets, and then he's master of the universe. It's a really boring storyline that I'm just sick of by now. And I remember the Tibetan prayer beads that Oz has on his wrist. I remember that from the first time I watched this episode. It was a detail that I noticed because also in my liberal white Bay Area bubble were a lot of people who are wealthy enough whose parents would go to Tibet for those week-long retreats. And they'd come back being like, I feel so deep and refreshed now. It's amazing. You gotta go. And then it's like, hello, you just spent like $10,000 like on a vacation in a developing country. How spiritual are you? Right. And I felt like the inclusion of the beads actually was really smart because it's exactly what, like, how old is Oz? Supposed to be like 20? Like exactly what a 20-year-old white guy would pick up and then feel really like it's an amulet that he needs.
He's also in a band,
Yeah.
I feel like he feels things.
Yeah, I was totally thinking this at a rewatch of like, that he's this guy in the band who like when it's before he goes through his spiritual phase, and now he's in the middle of that. Like,
yeah, which Beatles record is he on now?
Yeah. I was just thinking that the one with the sitars. Yeah.
What?
Oh no!
This seems like a trip from like the late '90s, early 2000s, because it was still like undiscovered or remote. Like what's the modern day version of going to Tibet to seek enlightenment? I was trying to figure that because the world's so like it's so close now with the internet.
I think the modern day version are the quiet retreats. I feel like that's kind of a big trope. I mean, that's probably one of many options, but the quiet retreats where you go and you don't talk for 7 days, 14 days, a weekend, 30 days. I see that as a part of the Silicon Valley culture of commodifying enlightenment.
Commodifying spiritualism.
Yeah.
Probably people are still going to Tibet, though. I feel like that's still super good. Maybe Bhutan.
Nepal, yeah.
Oh, it's ayahuasca. It's the fucking modification of the spiritual experience. It's the ayahuasca tree retreats in Peru and like South America.
Okay, so that's
also Burning Man, which is another commodification of like spiritual enlightenment. Yeah, where they have the VIP tents now.
Yeah,
against what the original thing was all about. So it'd probably be a burner tattoo, and like an ayahuasca story about seeing UFOs or something.
Well, you know who did used to go to Burning Man? Jenny Calendar.
techno pagans.
And Oz went to Romania, which is where many like Romani like tribe like myths start, and like saying I went to Romania, especially in this era, it was like kind of like I think code for I talked to gypsies. Just not a word that we like to use as much today.
Yeah. Oh, but this show loves the word gypsies.
Oh, they do.
And they speak in special voices. They're great.
Being in the UK, we can cut this, but like it's not really related. But being in the UK, I am experiencing all new kinds of prejudice and racism that I have not before. Like anti-gypsy sentiment is very common, and I was privy to my first like anti-Irish sentiment that I've never. It's a new thing for me. I was like, what? Like, oh, this is new.
Can you tell us the context, please? I'm super.
I was at
curious.
work and somebody was just like made like an overtly like anti-Irish joke, and I was like, and I literally didn't get the joke. I didn't really know what they were talking about, and I was like, what? And the guy was like, oh, we take the piss out of the Irish because they're ignorant criminals, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how is this okay for you to say at work? What are you doing?
Was that a student or like a
No,
teacher?
it's an
obviously it was
adult
teacher.
who was like doing a job.
Yeah.
And like,
Well, did you tell him Ireland's doing a lot
like,
better
I didn't
than
want
the
to say
UK right
anything,
now?
but like, and also like, I don't really understand the context because I'm an American. It's very weird to me. I didn't say anything or do anything. I just stood there pretending I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. Still, it was really not okay.
Well, you got to speak truth to power. You got to let them know that Irish people are just as backward as they are. Anyway.
Well, it was also like the thing that like people in the UK don't get about Americans is that like how many white Americans identify as Irish American and like are really hardcore about it. And I'm not. I mean, I don't. That's not my background. But like if I was Dennis, whose family like takes that pretty seriously, right, Dennis?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Like you could be like you do. It's not something you want to say to an American, like a white American anyway. Like it's no big deal. Like I feel like that could have gone really wrong for them. Not that it's okay to say it to anybody, but I don't know.
Yeah. That's interesting, John.
Yeah, it was super weird.
Dennis is like, give me his name.
Have you friended him on Facebook? Can I find this guy?
I feel like we haven't touched on losing your job / purpose, which it looks like Michael.
This
dropped
is something
into
I
the-
identify with. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel for Riley in this episode. Probably, I feel like Riley right now. So just like the losing purpose in your life because your role, so much of our lives are our jobs. And so for Riley to discover himself as an anarchist and that's his new role is really special to me. And it's like, it is goofy in the way it's held up, but like he needs a new role in order to like make it out of the initiative. And that felt like an exciting theme. And like Riley, I think, is the most fucked in this episode because he's given up the most, and he has almost no choice except to do it because because of standing up for the Scoobies put him in so much danger. You know, like you could even see it on the floor when he's like he tries to rescue Oz. Like they're talking about it, he does it, and then he ends up like basically court-martialed, and who knows what's going to happen to him in this system that he doesn't control. And so like I don't know, just feeling that like that sense of the guard changing around you and like you've got to get out of there. It just felt really profound. So I'm excited about the direction for Riley, but I'm also like, dude, you're so fucked. You know, I don't know if there's a place for you on the Scooby Gang. You probably have to move, live on the lam. Actually, maybe join the real U.S. government and not this fictional U.S. government.
Why didn't he just get in the van with Oz and they could just
Yeah.
It's out together.
There's two bros.
Riley could
Bros
learn
being
bass. And this next Dingoes record is going to be so good.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Michael. And overall in season 4, I find Riley a fairly boring character, but I would say this is probably my favorite Riley episode, is this one. This is the episode where I find him the most sympathetic. And it's because he tries to rescue Oz, and because he punches his boss in the face, and because he gets the hell out of the initiative. And like those are things that make me actually like respect him a little bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, even the like visual coding that happens earlier, like when Oz is being tasered, Riley's on the initiative floor, not in military uniform. He's the guy in the hoodie that episode, and it's already kind of visually indicating like he's separating from them, and he's like totally lost all authority like by that point, you know, before he even actually like revolts.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we have anything else? Maya, where can people find your stuff?
People can find my stuff all over the internet. I am Red Gold Sparks, all the 3 words squished together, on Instagram and on Tumblr. I have a website that is redgirlsparkspress.com. I have a lot of short comics up there that you can read. I also, like I mentioned at the top, have a book coming out in May 2019, which will be called Genderqueer, a Memoir. It's coming out from Lion Forge. It will be available online and in major bookstores. I'm hoping to debut it at comic shows, probably TCAF in Toronto. And then I also, if you're on the West Coast, I do a lot of comic shows around here. So maybe you can catch me at one of those. And my name is Maia Kobabe again, and this has been super fun.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been your host, Dennis St. John. You can find my comics at Dennis Comics, DenisComix on Twitter, and that's my .com. My Instagram is Dennis St. Comics. And you can follow us at Buffy Virgin Pod on Twitter, at Buffy Virgin on Instagram. And those are the good places to see the drawings I do every week or every other week. For the podcast, and we're buffyvirgin.com, and
new website coming soon. Yeah, we
oh, cool.
Yeah, so just
Dennis, do you want me to give you some old fan art of mine, a Buffy fan art to post on the Instagram?
Yes, totally. That would be awesome.
I'll send you some things.
Awesome. Yes. By the time you're listening to this, you can check out Maya's art on Buffy Virgin Instagram. All right, and we will see you in hell.